meetings back to back to back to back to back. And we just realized we wanted to figure out a solution to all the just abundance of information in these high performing, fast moving teams. And so at the time, of course, it's a meeting note taker. That's the nexus of all the communication that teams have. We knew, it wasn't so hard to predict the future, that there was going to be like zillions of different AI meeting note takers out there. And so what we started to do is really kind of examine like what were the specific jobs to be done in use cases around note taking that we could really differentiate in.
AI note takers are everywhere, but how do you know which one is right for your team? In this series, I'm going to be talking to the CEOs and co-founders of some of the top AI note-taking tools out there to learn about some of the more advanced features they offer. We're going to dive into things like their HubSpot integration, how easy they make it to customize the notes for different teams and use cases, how they handle data security and privacy, and other key features that really make them stand out. And why does that matter to Arrows? If you're syncing your meeting notes into HubSpot, Arrows can read that data and automatically suggest the right updates to your sales rooms. So you can update things like next steps, milestones, value props, and Arrows will even suggest new content that should be added to your sales room based on what you discussed in your meeting. All right, let's get into it. Hey Josh, thanks so much for joining me for this series. I have to give a quick background on how I know of you all. So Arrows obviously started in like the customer onboarding, customer success space. And I started at Arrows like a little around 4 years ago. And my hunch is that that's around when you guys were picking up traction too. And so we were both kind of early in the customer success, customer onboarding space, really hitting it hard with that kind of positioning. So I remember seeing you and UpdateAI everywhere at that time. And I know that you all have evolved a ton since then. So I poked around a little bit when I was evaluating the notes for the first kind of round of this, but I'm excited to learn more about where you're at now and dive deeper into the product as you show us today.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for this initiative that you're going through with this analysis for everybody. I know there's been a lot of excitement. It's, AI note taking, there's all different types of flavors out there. And yeah, really, really happy with the opportunity to be showing everybody what we're doing.
Cool. So if you want to get started by sharing a little bit about maybe your background, the company, where you got started, where you're at now.
Yeah, sure. Well, depends how far back we want to go. I've always been in product management, and that's important for later on in the story. But I was coming from consulting within product management and starting companies, and there was just so much noise in team communication. This is during the height of COVID, and there were meetings back to back to back to back to back. And we just realized we wanted to figure out a solution to all the just abundance of information in these high performing, fast moving teams. And so at the time, of course, it's a meeting note taker. That's the nexus of all the communication that teams have. We knew, it wasn't so hard to predict the future, that there was going to be like zillions of different AI meeting note takers out there. And so what we started to do is really kind of examine like what were the specific jobs to be done in use cases around note taking that we could really differentiate in. I brought together a team of data scientists, and that's why we're called UpdateAI. This is 4.5 years ago, before the whole hype around AI. Like we didn't buy the domain for that much money. We were an OG in that AI space. And we started to talk to different customer-facing team members. That's why you know us from customer success. Customer success was our beachhead. We said, how can we solve all the key decisions, all the action items that are coming from these back-to-back calls for that CS teams are on? And since then, we've evolved to really kind of be full revenue lifecycle, pre-sales, sales, customer success, account management, et cetera. But basically, what we do is at the foundational level, we are an AI note taker, just like the dozens of others out there that you've assessed. That being said, there's some key differences there because we're specific to customer-facing calls. And so we have, I will say, humbly, I hope, the most precise AI for customer-facing teams, because it's really been built for that purpose-built solution. And we take the data from those calls, from those recaps, and we bubble that up into trends around all the different customer accounts, like a full history of all conversations you've had with each of your accounts, and then also trends across your entire portfolio. What are the themes of the key risks, opportunities, product feedback in ways that are actionable, digestible, and reportable throughout the organization?
Cool. Awesome background. I think you have a demo ready for us with maybe some information to start if you want to kick that off.
Yeah, let me do that. So we're all about helping to retrieve those opportunity signals, risk signals, product feedback signals straight from your customer's mouth and help to surface those early enough that you can take action on them, right? There's lots of AI out there, but the key, and everybody will tell you this, is to really make it actionable. This is one of the key things that we're solving for. We call it the customer intelligence gap. And it's a really simple concept here. What this says is that as companies grow, As teams grow, as the number of accounts that you have grows, the conversations that you have with your customers gets exponentially greater, right? Like it's an obvious hockey stick growth curve there. However, the ability to process and synthesize all the insights from that conversational data across all those meetings doesn't grow exponentially. You can add a RevOps analyst here or another team lead there. And so that's that step function that's below the line. And the delta there, that big pink gap in between, is all just the conversational insight about your customers that get lost. It gets lost from those frontline people that are attending those back-to-back calls to the rest of the organization. So this is really our mission, is to solve this. The second thing that our mission is to solve is just there's a declining quality of life in SaaS right now for customer roles. These are some stats we put together, but you can slice it any way you want. I think that's just kind of a known thing these days, sadly, is that people are burning out, and we want to help to alleviate that heavier workload and higher pressure and scope creep as well that are in roles. So what do we do? Well, the value that we add is for executives. We're all about voice of customer reporting and trends that we unearth for them, what we help to unlock from the calls. For team leaders and for directors and operations folks, it's all about helping them enable their teams to capture the most amount of insight from their calls. And for individual contributors, they tell us that UpdateAI saves them up to 5 hours per week just from meeting recaps. And that's not even the reporting or the other advanced types of features. And the way that we break the product down, I mentioned this before, is meeting recaps for those IC, account briefs to keep the team fully engaged and collaborating together on the same knowledge, and then the voice of customer topic discovery that's really unique in the way that we've built it. Nobody else has been able to come up with as precise a level of insights across the different voice of customer themes. And that's because of just the very intentional way that we've gone about the process. I'll jump into the product and I'll go through an example here. This is the ground layer. This is the meeting recap. This was your first round of analysis that you did a couple weeks ago around just, AI note taking. Now, what you'll see here is one thing that's nice. There's no defensible moat around this, I don't think, but people really love the formatting of our recaps. They're not long paragraphs or long essays of notes after your call. It's very bullet pointed on purpose because we want to make it as digestible and easy to read for the customer facing team member. And you've got your overall TLDR, the summary of the conversation, any key action items that have come up in conversation, any key risks, commercial churn types of risks, sales risks that have come up in conversation, growth opportunities. These are areas where there could be room for closing the deal or for an expansion or cross-sell type of opportunity. Product feedback. Personally, my background being in product management, this was always really important for me and something that I never got were all those product insights. Key questions from the customers, key decisions that were made by you or the customer, advocacy for marketing. So the first thing that you see here as I go through these different themes is that they're all very cross-functional in nature. You've got your customer success for risk, growth opportunities for account management and sales, product feedback for product, advocacy for marketing so that they can help to understand who those champions are. And so that's really kind of the way that we've made this very purpose-built for customer calls and for go-to-market teams. If anything seems like it's not accurate, not relevant to the conversation, you can simply deselect it and it won't go into the larger engine. And what I can do is I can simply click into any part of the conversation and it'll take me right there where I can immediately share it on Slack or wherever I want to be able to share that part of the clip. Ask me anything. Everybody has their ask me anything, as do we. And this is a really helpful way to surface insights that you're looking for. On the meeting analytics side, there's talk ratio. We don't go so far into speech analytics. I know some note takers kind of have gone a little bit farther into that end. We can debate the value of really kind of the longest monologue and knowing knowing those types of metrics. Client follow-up email that will draft for everybody after their call so you can send it back to your customer. This is one of the features that folks tell us is really one of the most important things for them. And then we get into something that's really helpful for sales teams. And that is being able to create a framework. And you can take our preset frameworks or create your own. And we will automatically take the call transcript and fit it into, an AI generate that framework for that call. And what you can do is you can put this into Salesforce or into HubSpot, into any of your CRMs, so that these are mapped to properties for that account. This is also across, this is the meeting recap level, but it's also at the account level as well. Sharing capability, straightforward. But again, we've done this in a way where it really kind of speaks to customer facing conversations, you can create a public share link and you can turn on or off any of the specific pieces of information that you might want to share or not share back with your customer. And of course, everything is tied right into HubSpot. And you can see here in an image, I know you guys work obviously closely with HubSpot. This is what the notes look like when they go and are fed into a HubSpot event at the account or at the person level.
I do have a quick question for you. Actually, going back to the general meeting summary, the one thing I definitely noticed right away when I looked at your notes versus other tools was the default categorization was very different in a really cool way. Like the product feedback specifically, I find that very interesting and helpful too. Whether it's a customer success or a sales call, you're getting feedback on the product. And actually some of it in the sales call is what's typically getting missed by people because the sales team is maybe putting that in the CRM somewhere for like a close loss reason if there's product feedback, but it's not often getting to the product team, whereas customer success has more of an incentive to do that. But I'm curious, is there like a way to share that for our team, for example, we'd want that to get to our product team so that they could see that stuff. How do people share those kind of clips from here?
That's a great question. And so, by the way, this has been through like really rolling up the sleeves and creating some IP around really good detection of these categories for these cross-functional teams. I'll show you that in a moment. There's a way that product or anybody can follow the topics that make the most sense for them and get updated when there's new detections within that topic. Because that's the whole idea of what we're doing is everything in this meeting recap is really just the foundational layer to do the other cool stuff that why don't I go in and show you right now. So the next layer of the product is at the account level. This is what the account page would look like for that account, for the meeting recap that I just showed you. And it has a 360 view of all the previous conversations that anybody in your workspace has had with that account, any upcoming conversations as well. If I want, I could even click into a couple of those last meetings. I could hit to summarize those meetings. And you can see I previously summarized those meetings a moment ago. So it'll give me a quick summary of those calls. That's great if I'm stepping in, if I'm, let's say that I'm an implementation manager and I'm stepping into a new account and I want to see the summary of the last couple of calls that my sales team had, but I don't want necessarily all 15 of those calls. Easily just generate a quick little summary. Or I could go in here and I could click down and see the overall TLDR, go back to those specific meetings as well. The other part that's really helpful for folks to catch up on the history of all the conversations that people on their team have had with the account are the account stakeholder profiles. And so I can go into any specific stakeholder. They have a profile that shows personal information about them, some of their likes, their dislikes, any product or service requests that they've had, their communication style. We're adding more and more into this. We actually identify and infer whether this person is a decision maker, whether they're a champion or a detractor. I can see for each account the different topics and themes that have been discussed with this account. And I'll go back to this in a moment because this is more interesting, I think, at the segmentation level. And then the other part is that, you remember when we're at the meeting note-taking level, you could create a framework and it would put those notes into that framework. Here you can do the same thing, but you can do it for the account level. So here is where, whether you're in sales or CS, whatever the case might be, you can put together an account plan by creating a framework, identifying what are the key questions or pieces of information that you want to be generated, pick your date range for that plan, and then it'll automatically spit that out across that date range. And teams love this because it immediately allows knowledge to be transferred from one group to another and everybody to be kept on the same page. You've got your account story, you've got your ask me anything where I can surface any questions. Usually I find myself asking to remember what the tech stack is that they used as part of my sales process. And then all this information up here on the right is pulled in from, in our case, it's HubSpot. That's our CRM that we use. As we keep going here, the next layer of the product is the ability to track and to detect voice of customer topics and themes. And what's unique about these is that here's where we take the different insights that we've captured at that note-taking, that meeting level, and we bubble them up and cluster them into the higher level across the entire portfolio. So I can select my accounts, again, mapped all to my HubSpot or to my Salesforce. I can select different properties here, again, also mapped to HubSpot or Salesforce. So I'm able to slice and dice and figure out the segment of customers that I want to look at. And then across those same categories, again, consistently that I'm seeing at the meeting level, at the account level, I can look for the different types of themes called trackers. We have some preset trackers that we've trained, types of things that teams are often looking for, or you can add your own custom tracker. The tracker stuff, honestly, is cool. I can summarize it. It can be drop down of secondary themes, and I can even watch a playlist of different video clips that fall into that. We really like this product. Our customers really do too. But what differentiates us and sets us apart from anybody else out there is the ability for us to discover themes with zero setup or zero context required. So what we do is we'll take all the insights, again, across those same categories, risk, product feedback, advocacy, so on and so forth, and we will cluster those on our own into the key themes that we hear most predominantly. And so here, if I go into top advocacy, I can click onto product feature appreciation and utilization. I can summarize this particular theme. I can see all the different accounts that have made references to this theme. If I want, I can click into each specific one. It'll take me back to that moment of the actual conversation to watch the clip of that person saying whatever fell into that category. And so what leaders are able to do is really how I like to call it like a billboard chart of my top list of the different things that are coming up across different customer segments. One of the other things I could do is create custom topics here, and I can follow topics. And then when I follow the topic, we will actually send you a digest of any time there's a new reference within that topic so that you're automatically alerted when there's a new theme that comes up.
This is so awesome. I can see this being really helpful for marketers too. I don't know if you see that use case, but I've been doing a lot more marketing in the last year and a half or so. And most of my content ideas come from our voice of customer clips that our sales team or customer team is sharing, and they're sharing feedback. And then I get inspired of okay, that's content that our audience needs. We're learning about this, but I'm only getting what people are proactively sharing. So to be able to come in here and see even things I'm not thinking about, and it's automatically collecting that for me is pretty cool.
Yeah. You could create your own themes of topics that you are actively looking for. And then you can also just follow the stuff that we're generating. And like I mentioned, you'll get fed a feed of all the different detections that are coming up in those areas. You can watch the clips very quickly and kind of see where we're going here. We're really trying to create quote unquote the TikTok or Instagram of voice of the customer, really easy, digestible information that is fed to you in a very bespoke way of what each different type of decision maker in the org wants and needs to know. So then the last piece here is around enablement. And what you can do is you can actually pull a report. If you go back and remember those frameworks that I discussed, those account plan, the BANT, the MEDDIC frameworks that you can generate the notes in for each of your meetings or at the account level, here I can pull a report across all of my AEs or CSMs or TAMs, what percentage of their calls are they actually capturing this information? This is a dummy report. I'm the only person that's shown here, but you can see here within these particular areas of this particular framework, the percentage of the time in my calls that I was asking or obtaining this information. So here's where ops and leaders can go in and be able to really get granular and look of who on their team needs to be more trained to make sure that they're capturing the right information. Because at the end of the day, honestly, I think it's success in sales and CS through the entire revenue lifecycle. It's all about, what's the information that you're capturing in these conversations? Are you capturing the needs of each major stakeholder in the company? And are you capturing how much value you're delivering against those needs every time you're having a conversation with those customers? And so that's really what we want to do. We want to enable teams to be able to capture, track, and manage the needs versus value delivered in every single conversation.
Okay, one question that I have that you sort of covered a little bit. First of all, I think being able to share the calls and have it multiple links that show different things in there, I think it feels fairly unique from what I've seen. But I'm curious how that plays into, I think a lot of people have some concern around what happens with the meeting links, who's viewing the meetings. How do you all think about that, or what are your kind of thoughts on those questions?
That's a great question. So in this specific example, you were asking about those public view links that you can share out. How do you make sure there's proper privacy around them?
Right,
so we've built it in
exactly.
a very granular way so that you can have, only the specific person, the email address of the person you wanted to invite can access it, or it can be kind of like YouTube settings, right? It's either unlisted or and you can set expiration dates on links and things like that. So there's little nuances there around that to make it a little bit more safeguarded. Ultimately, also from a data and compliance, standard, I should say, or SOC 2 or GDPR, or all the things that you need to be in this industry to really be successful and reliable. And we don't train on your data. So, which is becoming more common, which is a great thing across note takers. We take this stuff seriously, as everybody needs to. We do take PII, not intentionally, but just the fact that you could blurt out anything in a call, right? So there is PII there, and that has really kind of made the bar pretty high for all these note takers to really be able to be secure.
Anything else that you want to mention or call out, or anything coming in the future that you want to highlight?
Yeah, thanks for that plug. Coming in the future that we want to highlight. Well, There will be more around 360 conversational data. So, not just meetings. When you think about the other different types of channels of communication that you're having with your customers, that's big with us. We just released our Gong integration so that you can have continuous calls in Gong fed into us. Same thing with Clari. And actually, our biggest customer, they coined us as the AI insights arm on top of Clari Copilot. And we have several Gong customers that say the same thing. So we started out competing with those guys, and there still is competition, but we're kind of in this frenemy type of territory as well, right? And so we've created a model here where it's a win-win, where we don't have to charge you for the entire thing. But hey, yeah, let us be the AI insights arm. That's the thing that we do better than anybody else out there. The note taking and stuff, we feel really great about how we do that as well. And people rave about that, but that's not going to build the unicorn, right? The differentiator for us is the AI insights and the topics. And so we'll take it all, whatever source you want to give it to us from, and we'll spit out those reports. We'd love to have folks try us out. We do proof of concepts. They're free as long as the decision maker's involved. And the cool thing is that oftentimes the ICs get an immediate time to value because then they love the note-taking aspect of it. And then during those first couple of weeks, we harvest the data to then go back to leaders and say, great, your ICs are loving this. How about you guys? Here's the themes that we unpacked for you. And the proof is in the pudding. Either it was telling and helpful or not. And fortunately for us, usually it's telling and helpful.
Awesome. This is great. If someone wants to get started, they go to your website. I know you have a trial where you can get into an account.
Yep.
Way.
Yep. Go to the website, sign up. We have a 2-week trial. We did just close our free plan. We had that going for a little while. We realized we're not so much in the PLG business. And so, it was kind of a business decision that we needed to make. But if anybody emails me, we've got a nice little discount going because of that migration. So you can message me at josh@update.ai and I'll try to hook you up. And yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Josh. This is great.
Thanks, Kim.